The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky here, and today I am with Leah Bonvissuto. Leah, welcome.
Thank you, Michael, for having me on.
So I'm really excited to dive into this. You've accomplished a lot. You were raised, and correct if I'm wrong on any of this, but our research said that you were raised by a Broadway musician and a mime turned magician. Is that correct?
It is actually correct. That is true.
Okay. And then you began your career as a theater director, but in September or so of 2018, you found your kind of coaching consulting business called Present Voices. You've worked with businesses like Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, helping their teams to improve their presentation skills. Did I get all that right?
It is absolutely, yes. And the focus is really on spontaneous speaking. It's something that I'm very passionate about because it's not something that came naturally to me. And I make a joke of that being because I was raised by a mime. But really, it was a result of social anxiety and challenges in talking about my work, which I found to be a really common theme in the different people that I work with.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about that. You went from being a theater director to the founder of a successful consulting and coaching business. How did you make that transition? Take us a little bit back. What was going on in the theater world that caused you to make the decision to step out and start a consulting and coaching business?
The theater world was my world. It was all I knew. And as you mentioned, I was raised by a Broadway musician and a mime turned magician. She's now a magician, my mother. And so it was natural for me to be pulled to the theater, but also because I had tremendous social anxiety as a child. And the theater was a place where there were rules around how you connected with someone. There was even a script so that you knew what to say. And it was a way that I could develop relationships with people on stage and find a more confident version of myself. And I always dreaded the breaks as an actor because you had to then be yourself and socialize, and it was tricky for me. I became a theater director because I believe it was an entrepreneurial itch and I wanted to be more in control of my career. And I also really loved helping people tell stories on stages of all shapes and sizes, from back rooms in bars to educational theater. But it wasn't quite enough. I started to get another itch. And part of that was because I was very competent and confident doing the work itself. But the moment I had to talk about the work, meaning meeting with press or interviewing with producers, it was like my identity went out the window and all of that social anxiety came back. And so about 6 years ago, I started to really wonder why. And I dove deep into not just my acting background, but more specifically, tools of presence and mindfulness. And how could I bring myself to the present moment and incorporate tools that helped me feel more confident? And that would result in me being able to communicate more clearly. I started doing this work in hospitals, and this happened about 6 years ago. I was brought into a public hospital here in Brooklyn to help their frontline staff have better patient communication by using tools of eye contact, body language, and mindfulness. It was so impactful that I never went back to the theater. And I started doing this work at that time in 2014. And from that, I built this company. And it has been so incredibly validating, first of all, on a personal level, to realize that so many people, I dare say almost every person I've met, feels this way on some level. And that these tools are actionable and put into practice. We can change our soft skills. We can change the way we speak about our work. And we can really have more control over the way that we show up in situations at work and in life.
Leah, let me jump in for a moment here, because one of the questions I was going to ask you is based on that background of your environment. One might think that you were a theater director, that you just naturally were very comfortable in communicating and being around other people and putting on a show, for lack of a better word, but that was not the case. And so for everyone who's listening to this and thinking, I resonate with Leah's situation because maybe I'm not the most quote unquote outgoing person, or I don't feel like I'm an extrovert, I'm not comfortable in a lot of social situations. You've clearly showed that you can overcome that. And I'd love if you could just offer one or two ideas or tips or things that you would suggest to people who might feel right now that their lack of social skills or their lack of kind of excitement around going out and meeting new people and having more conversations, like there's something that's holding them back from doing that. But deep down inside, they know that if they were able to do more of that, they would be more successful. But because they're not able to do it, they're likely looking the glass is half empty. And this is something that's holding me back and I just have to accept it. And then they accept a lower form of what they could actually become. So a couple of thoughts or perspectives from you on that would be great.
Yeah, it's a real fallacy that this comes naturally to most people. And it's something that we are all socialized to believe. It has been my experience that this does not come naturally to most people. It doesn't come naturally to me. And some of the best performers in history, some of the strongest speakers in history have had difficulty with spontaneous speaking. And when I say spontaneous speaking, I'm including public speaking there. I believe the best public speaking is spontaneous. I also believe that we are public speaking constantly at work these days in video conference and team meetings, in podcast recordings like I am doing with you right here and advocating for ourselves. So it's incredibly important. And what I realized when I began working with the types of people I work with, which is everything from confident seeming CEOs to data analysts and engineers, to people who might call themselves more introverted, to people who might call themselves soft-spoken, to people who feel very strongly about the need for authenticity in the way that they speak and work. These are the values I look for in people that I want to work with. And to be able to amplify those voices at work, for people to amplify for themselves a voice that might not traditionally be heard in workplaces is thrilling, and I believe is the future of work. And suddenly we're hearing from more kinds of voices. The trick is, though, that most human beings are lost in thought most of the time. And all of the research suggests that this is not getting better, it's getting worse. Our attention spans are getting shorter.
That's definitely the case, right? Like I see that all the time. And even myself, I used to be able to watch a movie and I'd be just fully focused on the movie. And now I find myself, I'm watching a movie and my phone's going to, or my hand's going to my phone. And it's like I'm trying to do two things at once. Like, what are you doing? Just watch the movie.
That is such a good realization. Even the awareness around your hand going to your phone is a tremendous step in the right direction. And so the work always begins with awareness. If I can have more awareness around my innate process, how I innately approach different situations of spontaneous speaking, I can then begin to make conscious choices to move everything that's unconscious to conscious. And first of all, I'm a big believer that there's nothing wrong in any type of communication or in any communication behaviors that some people are unfairly given feedback for at work or criticized for about the way that they speak. Really, no one should tell anyone else how to speak or what to say. It doesn't work, first of all, and it's completely up to the individual to feel in the driver's seat of their own communication. So in working with people, I act as an outside eye, and I'm very much targeting the work around what their goals are and what they want to work towards.
Is there a resource that, like, for everyone who might be, again, in that position or really resonating with this, if they want to go deeper, I want to dive into your story a bit more, but I also don't want to leave people hanging. And I think this is an important topic. So is there a resource that you might suggest that people look at if they want to kind of dive deeper to be able to delineate and differentiate between the conscious and the subconscious and what they're intentional about?
Yes, of course. I've started Present Voices on Instagram as a place to talk about talking because we don't talk about talking. And I want to normalize the anxiety that so many of us have speaking up at work. And so on Instagram, I'm presentvoices.co, or you can visit my website, presentvoices.co, where I have a news section and a blog. And I write about this all the time. And I will say, Michael, that my work is so meta because the work is my personal process. And this has been the process that I've put into place for myself in order to be present in my interactions.
Is there, beyond what you're doing, because I definitely, I want to call out and make sure people can go to your website, but beyond the work that you do, is there someone that you've learned from or some other resource that you feel is just a good one for people on this topic?
Absolutely. There are people I've followed in this world who have influenced me so much. People like Brené Brown, who's studying vulnerability and shame. People like Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way. And there's countless meditation resources that can help you bring your attention to the present moment. And I believe communication and meditation are the same thing, but communication is with another person. And so being able to bring yourself to that present moment is the foundation of everything that I do.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for those resources. I think now people have a lot that they can dive into if they want to go deeper into that topic, which frankly, I think is a very important one, and one that in the business world probably, I would say, does get glossed over and passed aside for metrics and all these other, the hard side of business. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we need to make sure that we're enjoying ourselves and living life and living it to the fullest. So to really recognize or prove ourselves and find ways to do that, I think is incredibly important. One thing that I want to hit on here, Leah, that stood out to me when I looked at your website is that you use data, you use numbers more than almost anyone that I've seen. And so, for example, on, I think it might be your about page, you talk about like 86.4% of people have or improved ability to communicate with confidence, and 99.8% absolutely learned actionable and practical tools from your work. So how do you, first of all, how do you track those things? Because a lot of people that I've talked to and consultants that come into our coaching programs, when we talk about this, because I'm a big believer in using data like this, they go, well, I don't even have that. I've never tracked that. So clearly you've been doing that. What's your process for being able to track that data?
The history of statistics around public speaking will show you that 74% of people are terrified of public speaking, and more people fear it more than death. Have you heard that before? And I have always asked this question in the rooms that I have gone into. And for the past 6 years, I've been in hundreds of rooms of all different sizes, different experiences in different industries. Most of the time working with people who are incredibly high achieving at some of the world's top tech companies and other sorts of organizations like financial services and healthcare. I always ask this question, and in every room, the number is far higher than 74%. In most rooms, I had eyeballed it to be closer to 90%. It started to amaze me. How could this be? And it wasn't just in rooms of engineers and people who might call themselves introverts. This was in rooms with sales organizations and sales leaders. I started to realize that in order to make this more tangible and to help people look at it in a more objective way and get out of our heads, because that's always the goal in the work, there needed to be a visual manifestation and an ability to isolate the different areas of communication. The tendency is when we don't feel in control in our conversations for us to say, I'm just not good at this. It becomes a blanket. And that lack of confidence is far more harmful than any other potential type of feedback that you could be giving yourself. And inspired by my many customers and clients who are data experts, last year I partnered with a data engineer and I built a data assessment around the different constellation of experiences that I have heard time and time again from hundreds to thousands of people at this point.
Hey, it's Michael here, and we'll be right back to the podcast. But first, are you ready to grow, scale, and take your consulting business and marketing to the next level? If so, our Clarity Coaching Program may be a great fit for you. You'll work with our experienced team to set up a strategic plan for your business and coach you step by step in areas like how to consistently attract more leads, develop a magnetic message that resonates with your ideal clients, strategically package and position your services, earn higher fees, win more proposals, and scale your business. To find out more about Clarity Coaching and apply, go to consultingsuccess.com and click on coaching.
I have found over the years of doing this work that most people are experiencing very similar things. And again, I'm really focused on professional communication.
Right. Sorry, Leah, I want to jump in just for a minute because I want to keep this very focused. So how are you actually getting the data from the marketplace or your clients? What are you, specific tool? Are you asking certain questions? Just give us a little bit more insight into that.
I built a Google form and it is part questionnaire. And then really it's gone into more of a data assessment. And I partnered with a data engineer. He built me a wonderful tool that now auto-populates from people submitting those Google forms. And I'm asking questions on 27 different variables when it comes to communication.
Who sees that? Like, who are you getting that in front of?
I am sending this to every individual coaching client that I work with. And I will use that assessment at the beginning of our work, at the end of our work, and sometimes in the middle. And that client is then getting a visual representation that's all branded. It's so beautiful. I'm so proud of this. This was my biggest project of last year. They're getting a visual representation of it. Now, it is completely self-assessed. I believe in the power of that because at the end of the day, if you feel more confident in your communication, nothing else really matters. But I do have instruments that are designed for managers and people who are more on the outside and observing that person's behavior as well. I also use these assessments when I do team workshops. My team workshops can be so galvanizing because we get in a room and a bunch of people who might not be willing to admit these vulnerabilities in other circumstances finally have an opportunity to do so. I did a workshop with a group of sales leaders at one of the world's top tech firms last year. The entire room was director level and above, incredibly high functioning individuals. And 100% of the room reported challenges with confident communication, managing speaking nerves. It was astounding to me, and it really helped to level the playing field that we're beginning this workshop about vulnerability and communication. And not only the entire room, but their bosses as well are acknowledging the challenges around the trickiness of communication.
Okay, so I want to ask you just about, so you've shared with us now how you kind of collect this data, which is great. So when you're starting with a new client and then at the end of that engagement, but you have a page on your website actually just called metrics, where you have lots of really nice kind of like tables and charts, very visual. Talk to us a little bit more about like, why is that there? Just very quickly, what's the purpose of you having that specific page? While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
It's to show that soft skills are not only measurable and tangible, but they're learnable.
Got it. And then how are you using that in your marketing? Like, what role does that metrics page play, or how do you ever take little pieces of it and use it in conversations, proposals? Like, how do you actually use that for your marketing and sales efforts?
It's been so thrilling to say, and the data really has been the proving factor here, that every single workshop that I have done this data assessment with, where the entire team is taking the assessment before the workshop, and then again, usually 2 weeks after, so that they can see how the tools are integrating in real time. Every single team has shown improvement in every single area surveyed. And that's a big deal for people to be able to realize that they can move the needle on their communication skills. These tools usually feel so ingrained in who we are and a representation of the fact that we feel like we're failing or we're not connecting with people. And to give people a boost of confidence on an individual level that they have the ability to be their own leader, to really feel confident and to see their own abilities change is astounding. But really, I work with organizations. That's the main focus of my work, is partnering with organizations who are interested in amplifying all the voices that they have in their teams. And this is a wonderful tool when I'm speaking to an organizational head, especially someone in learning and development or HR, to help them understand how they can better equip their teams with the tools to communicate better, because communication is the most important skill in life and work.
What you just mentioned, I mean, to me is very powerful, that you have a way to actually demonstrate, you have proof that what you do works. So when you're having a conversation, you don't need to, I'm guessing here, so this is just from my perspective, but that you don't actually need to sell as much. You can just talk about the results that people are seeing, and that does a lot of the selling for you, right? But a lot of consultants don't even take the time or make the effort to track that type of thing. They're not even capturing the data. Many haven't even made a list of their accomplishments or the outcomes, the results they've achieved for clients, and therefore aren't able to use that in their marketing. And then they have to work harder to make a sale to kind of push and persuade because they don't have the materials that could support them in doing that. Would that be an accurate statement?
It is. And you really hit the nail on the head. I innately don't enjoy selling, and I innately am not very good with numbers. So this is an area that I have really recognized where my weaknesses naturally are and have helped myself make it easier. I do a lot of work with sales teams, and my heart is so much with people who struggle with that sales process and finding it naturally. And I relate so much to entrepreneurs who are challenged by that as well. And exactly right. I can send someone these charts and they do a lot of the work for me. And I'm glad to say that the data has represented that and represented what I've been seeing in this work for many years.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. I mean, you've landed some very well-known brands over the years, names like Square, LinkedIn, Google, Facebook, a whole bunch of others from what I can see. And I'm interested to learn a little bit more about what's working for you when it comes to marketing. Like, how did you land those companies as clients? Is it through, well, you tell me, how do they come?
I have a 100% referral-based business. It has been completely thrilling that since starting to do this work, I have actually not had to market.
Where did it start? Like, where was the first, because when you launched the business, was it initially someone that, like, did you reach out to anyone, or did it start from a referral at the beginning? Like, kind of take us back to that initial, because people listening would be going, yeah, that sounds amazing, but that must have taken some time or some things must have happened in order for you to be at that stage. So at the early days, was it also 100% referral? And if so, like, what was the origin?
In the early days, the only people I knew were artists and educators. And I was so passionate about that. But I knew that there was something here even before I knew what the work actually was. So in the very, very beginning, I did a lot of pro bono work, mostly with friends. And it was everything from career coaching to speaking coaching, and really focused on public speaking at first, because that was the thing that seemed the most accessible to me. There's a stage, there's a script, there's an audience clearly defined.
That's your background, right? Like, you've been doing that. So, yep, leverage your strengths.
And quite frankly, business was not my comfort zone. And one of the first things that happened was that I had scheduled calls with people who were doing work like this, and to ask them questions about what they did at the beginning, what they regretted doing, what they would have changed if they could do it differently. And I really embraced, as much as I could, my lack of business knowledge and confidence. But very early on, I realized that I don't know a lot of people in the world that I'm trying to enter. And so I began by doing free workshops, mostly at co-working spaces. And that helped me really define what the work was. But then I did a workshop with a group of women leaders, happened to be all women, although I work with people of all genders. And in that room was someone who was a leader at LinkedIn. And that was how I got my first big corporate client. Before that, it had been a lot of nonprofits and educational organizations. And from there, truly, it has spiraled to be one person really enjoys the work. And because that person is usually in a leadership position, they then bring me in to train their team. And then there's movement in a lot of these tech companies. So people move up quickly, they move around quickly. And people were seeing such strong results from the work that they would tell people that they knew. And it has been truly referral based since then. As I said, a lot of my clients start as individual coaching clients. And from there, they bring me in to do team workshops, or the consulting model where I'm working with the CEO one-on-one, but then I'm really listening to everything the entire company has to say in order to make sure that people are feeling heard.
And so you're quite active on Instagram. We talked a little bit about that earlier. And it's interesting because for a lot of consultants, the idea of Instagram or even social media is a waste of time. It's a distraction. It's what you do when you have a few minutes to kind of update or say happy birthday to someone in kind of in its worst form when you can't even reach out. That's a whole other story. I always find it interesting, just a quick diversion here for a moment, but when someone's birthday and you send a happy birthday message to them on Facebook, but you don't pick up the phone or send an email, or like there's just quick little happy birthday. And anyways, to me, that's like one of the lowest forms of, or lowest values of social media, right? It's taking away the human interaction and showing that you really care and putting in. So, but you've done the exact opposite, right? You're using social media with, it seems like great benefit. But talk to us a little bit more about that, because you mentioned all of your business comes from referral, yet you invest time into Instagram. So what's the purpose of your Instagram account and how are you really using it? What's kind of the thinking behind it?
Yeah, it's brand new. I just launched Present Voices on Instagram at the end of last year. And like I said, I've never done much in terms of marketing. And my focus personally and in my work, and because my work can be so meta, has been on speaking and in-person communication, and then phone and video conference and all the ways that we speak and talk. But I've started to realize that there's so many other ways to project our work into the world. And for me, my personal challenge has always been around writing. And that has been such an interesting challenge for me. I'm calling it now the next frontier in my work, that writing becomes this way of looking more inward. The ways I have found to be able to be quiet with myself in order to hear what I want to say when I'm in person with people, the connection there is really fascinating when it comes to writing. And of course, I recognize the ability of the internet to project my work further into the world. I realized in the middle of last year that most people in my life, including some of the closest people in my life, didn't really know what I do. They believed that I was helping people just with public speaking. And here I was really passionately focused on spontaneous speaking and conversational communication. So I'm seeing the Instagram account as a way for me to more broadly project what it is I actually do. But more than that, I want to revolutionize the way that we think about talking, and to realize that if we can all talk about talking and how hard this is for us, we can really level the playing field in terms of the types of voices that are amplified and the types of ideas that are being heard. I'm starting a series in the next few weeks called Talk About Talking on Instagram, where I'm going to interview people about how they use talking in their work and how they use their voices in order to impact the world. And so I definitely have a book in the future that the account on Instagram is helping me find that voice and helping me determine what that's going to look like. And I have to say, it is not really an instrument to get more clients. It's actually a creative opportunity for me, and it's a challenge that I've been really enjoying, as struggling as that might be.
Leah, you mentioned that for you, numbers is maybe not the strong suit, right? Something that you leverage data to help you with. I'm interested to kind of explore your approach to pricing. How do you price your offerings? Are you using hourly fees, project rates? Are you on retainer, equity, performance? Just kind of take us through, what does your typical kind of pricing structure look like?
Sure. This is something that I know is such a huge challenge for small business owners. And first of all, I'm a big believer in transparency. So I surround myself with small business owners who I admire, and we talk about this, and we compare rates, and we share proposals, and we have a community where we can ask each other for advice. And that is invaluable. It's key in order to not undervaluing what you do. And I am so guilty of continuing to discount and to undervalue myself. And it's a complete reflection of insecurity and vulnerability that I feel is a constant process for those of us who are running our own businesses. And over the years, I have developed a framework that really makes sense for me. And so I've had to make it make sense for myself, the way that my individual coaching packages are different from a team workshop. So I do everything on a package rate now. I do not charge per session. So when I work with individuals, that's either a 6-week coaching process or a 3-month coaching process. That involves a 90-minute session approximately every 2 weeks. But I also make myself completely available on an unlimited basis via email, because as people are changing their communication styles, it can be destabilizing. And they need to be able to reach out to me as their partner and outside eye to say, this tool is feeling okay. Should I keep going in that direction?
And is the pricing on that different? Like when you're working with, let's say, an individual, and when you say individual, do you mean an individual in terms of like an executive in an organization? That kind of individual?
Yes. I work with, most of my individual clients are professionals in the corporate world. A lot of them more and more are having a professional development budget to cover our work together. That's wonderful. And then at other points, I'm hired directly by the organization.
Okay. And then so that's for kind of the one-to-one work that you do. In terms of the workshops and the consulting, are you using a similar kind of pricing structure for that, or is there something different that's done?
I have a spreadsheet in Google Sheets that helps me understand the amount of hours I'm putting into a certain process, so that there really is a baseline there that makes sense to me. But I have really solidified in my pricing so that I have a half-day workshop, a full-day workshop, and a 2-day workshop. That's when I'm doing these one-off workshop experiences. And that takes into account the telephonic consultations I'm doing, the planning, and also seeing it as the fact of if there's 20 people in a room, that is value being brought to 20 people. And that's the mental adjustment I've had to make this year to understand the ways in which the pricing structure is different, particularly because the individual coaching is a more affordable option, but because it's for one person. And then when we're looking at really impacting an entire team, it's going to cost more because the lasting impact of that is much more impactful on an organizational level. And then for the consulting packages that I'm doing, for the most part, I'm with an organization 1 day a week on site, and that's a full day of training. And then we're having 1 hour of consultation separate from that, where we are deciding who is going to have individual coaching, who is going to have team workshops, and who is going to sit with me in micro sessions so that I'm really having an ear to the organization's needs. And that is a monthly retainer fee.
And typically, how long do those engagements last for? Because if you're doing 1 day a week on site, right, I'm imagining that you're going to start to reach capacity fairly quickly, or that might be a concern for you.
I only take on 2 organizational clients at a time. So at any moment, only 2 days of my week are on site in those very, very intense sorts of client relationships. And in those moments when I have 2 organizations at a time, I'm very much limiting my individual coaching clients because it is a ton of work and emotional energy in order to be that present and available with an organization, which is incredibly important.
Awesome. Well, Leah, listen, I really want to thank you for coming on here. You've shared so many ideas in different areas from business perspective, marketing around the data, but also the importance of talking and just looking inward before you can even start to think about looking outwards. And I think that's a really important nugget here for people to consider. So you mentioned this earlier on, but I want to make sure that people can find out more about you and your work. So where's the best place for them to go?
My website is presentvoices.co. You can read about my work there, and I work with folks over video conference and in person. Or check us out on Instagram, presentvoices.co, where we're talking about talking. And I'm also excited to be featuring people in the upcoming weeks. So get in touch if you would like to be featured and talk about how you use talking in your work.
Stuff. Awesome. Thanks, Leah.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.